Erdogan used his trademark defiant tone to attack the demonstrators who've been holed up there for 2 weeks now. He said the park stank and it was time to let the police clear it out. Well, let's go straight to Istanbul and our correspondent Jasper Mortimer for the very latest. Jasper, so we've had a final warning from Erdogan. The protesters say they're going nowhere. What's likely to happen now?
Laura, I must just say I've been through that park many times today. It certainly does not stink. I'd like to give you the actual wording of his warning. He called on the mothers and fathers of Turkey to bring their children out of that park. I spoke to one of the demonstrators. He said he didn't find that wording patronizing. He knew that type of talk is part of the culture of Turkey, but he did find it funny. His own mother was in the park. Now, to the north of this Taksim Square, immediately behind me, 20 to 30 police buses arrived this afternoon. There are also reports that Erdogan is going to meet a delegation of protesters' associates this evening, but it would be wise to wait until that meeting actually takes place. The population of the park swells hugely during the course of the day when people like the demonstrators' mother go there to express solidarity. The population of the park is very small in the early morning, and what might happen, you can't predict the future, is that the police storm the park at first light tomorrow morning, as they stormed Taksim Square here early on Tuesday morning. I spoke to the vanguard of the protesters in the park, the Çarşı movement. One of their senior officials said that if the police storm, what they will do is lock arms and form a human chain to try and slow down the police's advance while the women, children and elderly people flee the park.
And Jasper, you could say, couldn't you, that Erdogan is going for more of a carrot and stick approach now? You just described to us the stick, get out of the park, but what about the carrot? That's the offer of a referendum on those redevelopment plans for Gezi Park. How is that offer being received?
The protesters have rejected it. One of them told me, "We will boycott it." Now, that sounds undemocratic. Erdogan likes to say he has 50% of the voters behind him, and according to the elections, that is true. But the protesters say the 50% shouldn't trample on the interests of the 49%. A lot will depend on the referendum's actual voting area. If the referendum is confined to the districts immediately adjacent to the park, then Erdogan will lose and the protesters are likely to win a vote for the park to stay as it is. If, however, the referendum is conducted in the whole of the city, then certainly Erdogan has more supporters than the people in the park, and the government would win. But an important point to realize here is that the protests have snowballed. 80 cities and towns have staged protests against the Prime Minister. This is no longer a movement about one little park in one place. The protesters want Erdogan to become more democratic. And I think if the police clear this park in the next day or two, the government might find that that is not the end of the story. The protests might very well go on in other places.
OK, Jasper, thanks very much indeed. Jasper Mortimer there reporting from Istanbul. Well, there are concerns about civil liberties in Tunisia as well this Thursday. A rapper has been jailed there for